Hello all, and welcome to another CTC webinar. My name is Sean Zerbis, Technical Evangelist here at CTC, and today we're going to talk about what exactly is HIVE. This is going to be as comprehensive a HIVE introduction as I think we can do without digging too deep into the technical depths of any technology. So what are we going to talk about today? So first off, you may have heard the buzz about HIVE. You kind of want to see HIVE in action. We're going to do that today. We're going to demonstrate how HIVE can be used. And how it might be a quality solution for you guys to leverage in-house. That'd be great. We're going to talk about all the major features that are available. We're going to actually take a look at searching content, demonstrate how users can leverage this both from a Windows program and from a Revit application, and really how most of your workflows can be improved and sped up by using a tool like HIVE. So first of all, why HIVE in the first place? Well, let's talk about Windows and their file management. There's so many files. There's tons and tons of files that exist on your computers, that exist on your network, of course. Most of those aren't really going to be very relevant on a regular basis. Most of the time, you're probably going to be using some major design files, some typical standards documentation, and you want to be able to get to that stuff as quickly as possible. The problem is Windows file structure gets out of hand really rapidly. And when you're searching for something, sometimes you find multiple copies of the same file. Which one's the real point of truth? Which is the one that you actually want to be using? And a lot of times, just the file name isn't enough to identify what's going on. You have to open up the files or load them into your design environment multiple times before you can figure out which one is right. And another major problem is a lot of us, we're not all super huge companies. Some of us are pretty large companies out there. That's great. Or we work at large companies. But even so, when you're not in the main office and you're trying to access this content, maybe you wanted to do some work over the weekend. I'm not a big fan of taking work home, but hey, sometimes you got to get work done over the weekend. That's just the way it works. Or sometimes you want to get work done from a job site or from a client's office during a client meeting. And if you don't have a VPN connection to your office, sometimes that can be frustrating. And so how can HIVE help with that? We're going to take a look at that in just a minute. So the major topics we're going to cover in this session today. We're going to talk about general navigation, how to just navigate around HIVE, how to use it, how to kind of see the content you're looking for. We're going to take a look at the details about the content that is in HIVE. So you can get some extra information beyond just the basic data, about the file name. You're going to dig deeper into that file and know more about it. We're going to talk about consuming content. How do you use this stuff that's stored inside of HIVE? How is it beneficial? And we'll talk generally about a little bit of administration inside of HIVE. We're not going to dig too deeply in that. We have some specific webinars that are soon to be released, recorded on the same exact day, and today in this case. And we're going to be going deep into administration of HIVE and super deep into the actual user navigation and user workflow in HIVE. This one here today is designed to be more of a general overview. That said, if you do have any questions, we are always watching the questions window when we're doing these presentations live. So by all means, throw them in the questions window. And if you're watching this after the fact, definitely feel free to comment on the YouTube video because this will be uploaded to YouTube in the near future. All right, so with those being the major topics, why not just jump right in and take a look at what HIVE can do? So we're out here on my desktop. You can see I've got two major tools here. I've got HIVE. Well, this is a sort of a copy of my desktop here off to the side, but I've got two tools. I've got HIVE and I have the CTC Account Active Directory Synchronizer. This tool here is actually an optional installation that can be installed for those of you who are admins. It helps you administer your users, and we'll talk more about in the admin session so you guys can understand how to use a tool like that. HIVE itself, though, is the main program in Windows. There are design software verticals as well. In this case, we'll be talking primarily today about Revit as a design software vertical. So let's actually open up HIVE. We're going to open up HIVE here from Windows directly. And when we're inside HIVE, HIVE is itself a login-based tool. So I've just logged in as a basic end user. In fact, HIVE automatically logged me in because it remembered who I was logged in as last. And so for right now, I'm logged in as Joe Demo. And you can see a fairly basic interface here. It's got a couple of buttons on the left-hand side. It has a search option across the top. There are some basic shortcuts that are available here, so a person can jump in and use some of their default saved searches. They can automatically filter for a couple of libraries, and they can work with some tags here if they wanted to pre-search a tag. In fact, if I click any one of these things, like if I click lead right now, what this should do is run a search for me. It's actually going to filter down to just the lead documentation and run a search for everything that's based on lead. Now, if I wanted to refine this, if I wanted to know more about this filter, there's a little filters option right here. And by default, Hive has filters closed. You can certainly choose to open that. I personally leave filters open all the time, but that's my personal choice. When you click on filters, you have the ability to actually see all the filters that are actually being used right now. Lead right now is the only filter that's actually being used. You can see that I can filter by libraries. This is something that I could have triggered from that home page. I can sort content by relevance, by name, by how much it's been downloaded, by user rating. I can sort this by a number of different things. And yes, users can rate content depending on which libraries they're in and what their rights are. That's been given from the admin team. I can change which tags it is I'm trying to search for. Tags are extra metadata that's assigned by the company admins and or by library admins when they're setting up content. You can filter for ratings, whether or not content has comments. There's a lot of things you can do over here. You can also choose to show some extra information over here to the left. So if I expand this out, you can expand it so you can actually see the labels for those icons, or you can collapse it if you wanted to save yourself a little bit of screen space. For today's little demonstration, I'm going to leave this expanded so you can see where I am in the interface and understand exactly what it is I'm clicking on. So I'll have the toolbar over here to the left opened, and I'll also have filters opened throughout the discussion. All right. So I'm currently searching for content right now. I have filtered for lead in the tags of the content. You can see that a lot of these files here, or all of these files, will have lead listed underneath tags. Now, lead may also be a part of the file name. That's a possibility, but that's not always going to be the case. In fact, I don't know, I guess I do have lead on all of these files here, but that's not always going to be the actual case. Now, if you wanted to open up one of these, you wanted to use one of these files, it's as simple as it would be in Windows. If you double click on it, it'll open it up in whatever in this case, PDF, and whatever my native PDF reader happens to be. And I can read about this lead construction in this particular document from 2007. So slightly dated file, but regardless, we've got this file at our fingertips. There's also things like a new construction checklist. This is a template file, an XLTX, an Excel template. When you open up something like that out of Hive, Hive understands exactly what it's supposed to do, and it opens me up into an unnamed, sort of unnamed, new template document. So if I was to save this right now, it wouldn't save to the original. It would actually save a brand new file because it's an unnamed file right now. So it works just like normal templates would work. And that's true of anything that I add through Windows. If you can do something out of Windows, you can probably do it with Hive, almost certainly. You can organize it, you can tag it, you can make it searchable very easily. And that's great, right? You can use this for the purpose of, navigating around your content. That's fine. But let's talk about something that's more interesting to the vast majority of us, which is a design software, since most of us are looking at this from the point of view of managing content for something like Revit. So I'm going to close out of this, and I'm going to open up Revit. In this case, I'm going to open up, that's 2016. Let's open up Revit 2018. That's what I intended to open up. I do have a project open right now, but what I'm going to do is actually open up Hive, the Revit add-in, and we're going to take a little bit of a look at the difference of the interface here. So I'm going to grab Hive. It's going to take it a second. It opens up back inside of the same user, in this case, Joe Demo. I'm going to pull this off to the side a little ways, and I'm going to expand it out just a little bit. Now, there's already a search run here because I ran a search last time I was in here, and Hive remembered that since I had Revit open a little earlier today, and I was testing it out just to make sure that what I was looking for was what I was going to find. Again, I can expand out filters, and I'll make this box just a little bit wider. You can see that it's very much the same interface that I had inside of Windows, in the Windows program. The difference, though, is this. When you're in a design software, in this case, again, Revit, when I'm in Revit, I have some extra little filters here showing me only Revit content. I can filter down to Revit categories, and I can filter into the Revit version. So I have a lot more that I can do with this and a lot more that's automatically searchable because Revit content itself has more data built into it than just say a Word document. I can search deep into that family and find out exactly which component it is I'm looking for. Now, again, if I go out here to the home page where I had started, I have some basic saved searches. I have my libraries again. I had these before. I have all the tags. But what's different here, if I scroll down, I also have on the home page the ability to filter all those Revit categories. This is something that when I'm in the Windows program, it didn't really make sense because I wasn't in a design software that was specific to any kind of one file type. In this case, when I'm in Revit, I get Revit specific stuff. And actually in this case, let's say I wanted to search for something. In fact, I'm going to clear all this content out. Let's say I wanted to maybe only find template information. Let's talk about a Revit template here. And I'm going to hit enter here and actually search for Revit templates. Now, natively, if you're a typical Revit user, you might expect to see an RTE right here as the file extension. In this case, that's not what I've got. I have an RVT file. This is a work sharing enabled templates project file, and I'm going to use this real quick as a starter project. If I double click on this, what Hive will do is it will tell me it's going to open this project. In this case, I'm opening up the 2018 version, the A18 model, because I'm in Revit 2018. I could just as easily have opened up 2016. And I could also, had I chosen to do so, filtered out for just my current Revit version, so it knew what version of these files it actually was, and it would have shown me only the current version that I was in if I chose to filter that way. In this case, when I open up this project, because it is work sharing enabled, I have a couple of options. I can create new locals. I can open up the central file directly if I wanted to. I can open it detached from central, discarding or preserving work sets. Now it's nice little options there. In my case, I'm going to start it opening it by preserving work sets, detaching it from central, and basically making myself a brand new file that is empty. Okay. Once I'm in this file, and now in my case, I have no floor plan views. So give me just a moment here as I use one of my other Revit Express tools, View Creator in this case, to actually rapidly put in some views into my project. So I'm going to tell it that I want to have a couple of levels of floor plan views. We'll just do general for now. Why not? We'll do a couple of extras. And we'll build, we're going to not do enlarged plans. We're going to do base plans here. We're going to add all of these to the list and no abbreviation for the phase. Try again. There we go. Create all these views. All right, 12 floor plan views built up, and they're all listed over here, ready to go. So I can go to something like my general floor plan view, and I can start to draw something. Now, for now, I'm going to go ahead and minimize this Hive environment, and I'm going to start drawing something out here in my model. And we're going to talk about a user workflow of how a user might leverage Hive in sort of an essential way. While I'm here, notice how my wall types in this particular starter project or template, there's very few of them. That's intentional. So if I start with something like a generic 12-inch wall and I draw something out here, that's great. But if I wanted a different wall type, natively in Revit, you'd have to go through some other workflow to get walls in. Maybe you have to open up a project file that has a bunch of walls, then you have to go to manage and you have to go to transfer project standards, making sure that you uncheck everything except for the walls, and then come down here, find the wall types, there we go, and click OK. Now, I'm not going to do this because I don't want the wall types out of this project, with the one that's opened up in the background. That might be way too many wall types. Instead, I only want one wall type. In fact, if I search for it here, if I know part of the type name, I can just search for that one thing, in this case, A underscore. And this is Hive is going to search the entire library and look for anything that matches A underscore. Now that's pretty generic because I'll probably find quite a lot of things by searching for that. In this case, I happen to find, the 8-inch wall, a 6-inch wall, and a couple of other walls that have been used a few times here. You can see that they've been dropped and loaded into a project a number of different times. And I can, again, sort by that, right? I can sort by how many times something's been used or what the relevance is to my actual search here. Well, once I find something that I'm looking for, and the real intent of this search and some of these filters isn't to find one thing necessarily, I could use it for that, but the real intent is to narrow down the search criteria until you find a collection of things that are meaningful and then start pulling content from that. You can choose, by the way, I haven't really mentioned this, you can kind of choose how you want this to organize. In my case, I've got it set up for a list view right now, but you might want this set up as a gridded view. That works just as well. In fact, I often use just the gridded view now, and I'll show you why in a moment. So I'm just going to leave this open as a gridded view. I'm going to take my wall interior type A 8-inch, and I'm going to drag and drop this into my model. So it's just like using, say, Windows Explorer, right? You drag and drop files between different directories, things like that. In this case, I can just drag into my model. And notice this, it's loaded just that one wall type. And it didn't take very long. It took just a few seconds. I was able to search for it, find the wall, drag and drop. And now I'm off and drawing whatever I feel is relevant here in this model, right? You can do anything that's meaningful for you, and it's drawing just that wall type. Now, if I was to go grab another type A wall type here, let's say I wanted a type A 6-inch wall type. It's the same thing. I'm already here. All I have to do is drag and drop that wall type into my model. I personally like to minimize HIVE here in this case, and I'll draw something, you know, whatever out here to have, you know, some space divided up in this structure. And once again, it's automatically drawing that particular type of object that I used out of HIVE. Now, if I wanted to insert a door, so we talked just now about system families. It's a special kind of content that only exists within the boundary of a project. So what I'm going to do is go over here to architecture, to door, and drop in a door in here. Now again, this template, I have it intentionally stripped down. So there's no doors loaded. And it wants to know if I want to load one. Well, I do, but I'm not going to load it by navigating through Windows because that might be a little bit cumbersome. So instead, I'm going to go back to HIVE over here, and maybe I want to look for a swing door. Maybe I want a single swing door. So I'm going to say single swing, right? Put that in there, type it in, search for it, give it a second to search. And while it's searching, by the way, there's a question that came through. It says, are the wall types in individual files or are they embedded within projects? Is HIVE effectively searching project files? Well, I'm going to get to that in a little bit, but in order to answer that quickly, HIVE actually does manage those individual system families. They have to be in a project, but HIVE breaks them down so that they're super fast to load. So you don't have like a 100 megabyte warehouse file, for example, that a user has to cache into memory before it can load the content. It actually subdivides it for you. You still manage your big, massive warehouse file if you want to, and I recommend that. But HIVE is actually breaking it apart. And again, we'll talk about that in a little while. Okay, so this found a single swing door for me, and I've got a few choices. And because I just put in some basic search criteria, single and swing, this acts a lot like a Google search would act, where it searches more than just the string of the words. It searches kind of individual words as well. So in this case, single is finding outlet single, single switch, single corral, right? So you can get a couple of things here. In this case, another single outlet, and another single door, right? So it's trying to search for this based on relevance. Nothing here did I ever tell it I wanted a door necessarily. I told it I wanted single swing, and that can mean a lot of things. In this case, I have a door right here, door single panel RFA. And notice how there's a little T here, and if I mouse over it, it says that this thing has a type catalog. We'll come back to that in a minute. But just like with normal Revit families, dealing with Revit content, if you do have a type catalog, HIVE will automatically leverage that type catalog. It parses it, it gives you information on it. In fact, let's take a look at some of the information here. I'm going to expand this out a little bit so I can get some details on this component. There's the option here to show or hide the content detail pane right there, kind of like showing and hiding the filter pane. There's two different panes here. Or I can right click on an individual piece of content and I can show details. Now, when I do that, that shows, of course, the detail pane. You can see this highlights over here now. I can actually see what individual family types exist for this content here. I'm going to narrow this down a little bit. So if I click on this, I can actually see what the different values are and what's stored in that type catalog. In this case, height and width is in that type catalog. So when I drag this content in, I'll expect to see things about, those specific types. Also, this particular content has been rated. In fact, it's got about a 4-star rating on it right now. If I expand out the ratings, I can actually see who has been rating this content. So my account rated it as 4-star back a few months ago. And another account here also rated this as a 4-star. So it's pretty well locked in, right? Well, not pretty well locked in. It's only got 2. That's a very low quantity for ratings to give a solid average here. But I mean, if 2 people think it's acceptable, hey, that's good. Okay, so I can see when they've rated these things, and I can also see if I wanted to scroll over more, I could figure out if they've ever updated their rating. So if you're a BIM manager, by the way, you can leverage this to find out and kind of take the temperature of certain portions of your library. And again, you can filter for some of that stuff. All right, so now that I've found this, I'm going to take this door and I'm going to drag this into my model and use this particular door. So it's going to load it. And again, because there's a type catalog, it's going to allow me to use the type selector out here. So I can pick as many or as few types as I want, and I can then load those selected types into my project. So it'll load them, and it'll start that door placement command again as well. So over here now, it's using 34-inch by 84-inch and a 36 by 84-inch, and I can start taking these doors and dropping them wherever is relevant into my model, right? So this is just up to you now to do a little bit of design, or whatever you feel is meaningful in your project. Not that I'm a great designer. I'm not. That's not my forte. So don't critique the fact that this building's ugly, please. I also want to do some door tagging. So maybe I do door tag and bring that in, because maybe I don't have a door tag necessarily here in my model. And in just a minute here, I'll show you about scheduling as well. I don't actually have any schedules other than like a basic room schedule here. So I'll have to search for that as well. So I'm going to grab this door tag. Now, if I click on it, it gives me information about types as well. Well, there's no real major types of this door tag. It's kind of basic. There's also no type catalog for it. But if I do drag this into my model, what this should do is actually initiate the actual tag command. So I can begin going around here in my model and tagging things just directly again from Hive. So this again becomes my one-stop shopping. Now, again, notice here, schedules and quantities, I've got a room schedule. I do not have a door schedule, but I want one. Well, let's say I wanted to filter this information down a bit. I want to get directly to something like a door schedule. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to my libraries. I'm going to go to my corporate content. So I'm not searching absolutely everything. I want to just go to my corporate Revit content because I can use that as a filter. I, as an end user, can build up my searches how I feel is appropriate. I can also say, hey, I'm looking for a specific category of content. In this case, maybe I want to have a Revit schedule. So I'm going to grab that. And maybe I only want to pull stuff from Revit 2018. So I don't have to worry about an upgrading of a file. And I could also, if I knew about a tag on there, I could search for tags there as well. And what I'm going to do is search for just door. So I'm searching a particular library for schedules in Revit 2018 and anything that matches door in this case. And I would expect to find something. Yeah, here we go. Here's a door frame schedule and a door frame schedule filtered by level. So I can take something like this door frame schedule, which again is a project hosted component. I'm going to double click on that or drag and drop it either way, and that'll bring it into my model. And I'm going to collapse this details pane here and collapse over Hive just a bit. Notice how over here I've got the full door schedule itself filled out. Now let's say I also wanted to maybe find doors. So I'm going to type in door here. I'm going to filter for just doors. I'm going to find specifically my corporate doors out of my library. And maybe I'm looking for I don't know, swing again. So these two didn't show up earlier as high on my list. Maybe they weren't used as much. Maybe they weren't considering them as relevant. I don't know, whatever. But I wanted to take this door and actually bring it in because I know these doors are designed to work with my schedule, unlike the garbage content that I pulled in earlier, which was from the Revit out of the box library. So back here, I'm going to go ahead and grab, say, swing single, and we'll bring this into the model. I'll double click on it, drag and drop it. But what I want you to notice here, neither of these two doors have a type catalog. If I cancel this, I click away. Notice how there's no type catalog, there's no T over here. Hive doesn't care. If there's types in the family and it's available, it'll actually act like there's a type catalog anyway, so a user can be selective. Hey, give me the full glass hollow metal frame, or give me the flush panel hollow metal frame, whatever. I can choose what I think is relevant, and I can load just those selected types into my model, and again, begin to place those elements as well. So once this is loaded, if I go take a look over here in properties, notice how swing single just has the two types that are available to me. So this makes it real easy for you, even if you don't have type catalogs at play, to organize your content and let users bring into the project, or you as an end user to bring into your project whatever is relevant. So here in this case, I'm going to drop in this Hollow Metal 00 flush panel over here. We'll drop it in right there. And we're going to go ahead and tag this guy, since I have a tag in my project already now. So this was the Hollow Metal 00 full glass 36 by 84. So if I go back to that door frame schedule, because it's designed to work with my corporate content, I get exactly what I was looking for here. The panel type, the material, the finish, the frame type, materials and finishes, right? I get all this information ready to go because, you know, I have my library nice and neat, and users are able to find what I want them to find. All right, let's also take a look at a couple of other things you can do with Hive directly from the Revit portion of the program. So far, we've been focusing exclusively on Revit content. If I clear this out, I also have the ability to turn off this only Revit content filter right here. While I'm working in Revit natively, typically I probably am only going to want to find Revit families. But there's times I might want to find something else. Let's say I'm linking in a model and I want to know about shared coordinates. I can type in shared up here. I'm searching all of my libraries, and I've removed that from the library. So maybe what I should do is make a request and actually ask somebody to give me information about shared coordinates. Or in this case, I have a document that's, you know, it's a DOCX, it's called project orientation. I could open this guy up. This will open up in Word in this case. And because it's not a template, it doesn't open it up as a new file. It's the original document here. But this tells me a little bit about shared coordinates, right? But maybe this document here is hard to read. Maybe I don't like it and I want to request a better document. Well, I can do that. I can go over here to request and I could say, hey, let's make a new request. You can see I've got a bunch of requests for this particular user, by the way, some of which have been completed, some of which are pending still, some are in progress, right? But I'm going to go ahead and make a new request, and I'm going to suggest it goes to my standards and procedures library, and I'm going to say, I need additional shared coordination or coordinates documentation. And if I had a good set of files, I could actually add that. If I knew where I had some content that was about shared coordinates, I could maybe suggest that those be added into Hive as well. So I can click here on add. This is me as an end user. I can do this. I can go here to where I've got some of this content. Maybe I've got it on my desktop. And I think that maybe there was a document that was out here like these guys, importing Civil 3D files, establishing shared coordinates, Revit terrain modeling. Some of these things are important, and maybe they all kind of relate to shared coordinates and coordinates in general. So I can attach these directly to my request. BIM managers can get that, and they can actually download this content and see if it's any good. Now, I probably should have given them original document files, but, you know, whatever. In this case, maybe I only had PDFs. And I can give some more details about this. I can, you know, talk more about what I feel is needed here, you know, kind of like a communication page. I can also suggest some tags for this if I felt it was meaningful. So if I knew that there was tags that existed in my library, I could go through and do something like that as well. So when I click send request, somebody on the BIM administration team or library management team, they're going to be notified about this. Now, let's use this as a chance to actually jump over and take a look at how a BIM manager might work with this information. So I'm going to log out of Hive as myself right now, and I'm going to log back in as me. And I'm going to click login. Now, when I log in as me, as a company administrator, instead of being logged in as Joe Demo, I get all kinds of additional stuff over here. Hive automatically manages what it is that you see on this toolbar on the left-hand side. Now, all my other functionality like searching for content, I didn't talk much about discovering yet. We'll talk about that in a minute. But this is basically automatically, you know, allowing me to search in two different ways my library of content. I can see things in my active project. I can, you know, save searches. We'll talk more about that in user-specific workflows, but you can save your searches that users can recall them. You kind of saw that I had some of those saved searches here already. You know, I can, as an admin though, I have a couple of extra bits of control. I have the ability to create and manage the libraries, the buckets into which content can be dumped, right? I can add content into those libraries. So the libraries, again, are just meant to be a basic organizational system. This isn't designed to like recreate your Windows folder structure. We've already got that. This goal here is to go through and make it so that there's simple buckets you can dump some content into. Notice I've got my company's Revit content, some out-of-the-box content, some AutoCAD content here. I've got standards and procedures for some documentation. I've got a few templates, right? Pretty simple little interface. In fact, this is how a lot of my clients will start out using Hive directly, like this. All right. I can, again, then add content to it. So I can add files, or I can add project-specific information like the wall types that we were using a moment ago. In fact, if I click over to project right now, it'll actually refresh to the project I have here in the background. And I can do something like taking my door frame schedule or my room schedule and adding that into Hive from this particular project. And when I do that, Hive does what it's supposed to do and kind of condenses the information and makes it super easy for users to search for it and super fast for them to drop it in the projects, right? So I have some controls over that. Or the individual files, the Word documents, the PDFs, the Excel files, the Revit files, Revit projects for that matter. You can add an entire project and use it to start up a new project like I did the first thing today in Hive. You do have some company administration controls that you can set up. For example, if I wanted to make sure that this content was available to everybody, I can upload this content, or rather I should say I can enable the uploading of content. It's your choice. If you don't want to have your content cloud hosted, you can choose to not do that. I can also choose to force the always download from cloud option. Now, even if your content is available to the end users in your local office, that's great, right? But I recommend always forcing download from cloud because that's what makes Hive work so quickly with that system family content. If you weren't using it for Revit specifically and you're using it just for Windows stuff, then that doesn't matter. You can do whatever you want here. But this always download from cloud option, this makes it lightning quick when you're dealing with all that extra Revit data, that background data, especially system families and schedules and drafting views, model groups, things like that. There's also some options down here that can limit how users interact with certain bits of content. I'll jump back over to Joe Demo and talk about some of this here in just a moment. But you can also go over here to tags and administer all the tags that are available. Now these I built up over time. I didn't start with all these tags. As I was working with content, I added tags that were relevant and it added to my list. I've over time gone in here and deleted certain tags that I didn't feel were relevant. I got rid of them. And there's some that I probably still should go in there and clean up a little bit. I like to keep this list clean, but I like to keep it usable. So over time, I'll probably end up with about 200, 250 tags overall across most of my library that I will use. You might have a different number, and that's okay. But this is an area where you can go through and administer this. You can kind of start seeing if there's any duplication of tags. You can delete tags from here if you need to. It'll actually strip the association from all content. That's one way to do that. But you can use this for some tag management. You also have user management here. Now my Hive is fairly small. In the admin session, I'm going to add a bunch of users to Hive. But for now, I don't have a ton of users just yet. I just have 2 people. There's myself as the company admin here. That's the login that I'm in right now. And there's Joe Demo in here as a basic user. And I can assign whatever rights Joe Demo gets throughout the entire library. Now I prefer to do that by using these user groups here. I have an everyone user group and I have a BIM Manager user group. Now right now at this point, nobody's in my everyone group just yet. It's just, well, me and Joe Demo. I also have a BIM Manager group. Of course, I'm in that group. I'm a company admin. I'm also a BIM Manager, so I may as well put myself in this group. And as I add additional BIM Managers to the company, as I want to give them rights, I put them in this group. Notice how there's no rights assigned here, though. We're going to talk a little bit about library management, just a little bit, lightly. We'll talk a lot more in depth about this during the admin portion of the discussion. But if I go over here into libraries, from the libraries area over here, if I go to like Revit content out of the box, okay, my out of the box library. Right now I have everyone set up as a specific role. This is where users get their rights on a library by library level. The BIM Manager is set up as an admin. So as an admin, they can actually add additional content to the libraries. They'll get a couple of extra controls if they're in that role. Now I'm a company admin, so I get all of the controls here, but if it was somebody else who logged in, they would get just libraries content and add content and be able to administer their libraries. You can choose to add users specifically if you want. And there was a question that popped in about inviting users from outside your company. Maybe they don't necessarily have HIVE yet. Well, they would need to download it, of course, and have the add-in. But you can invite users from outside the company to actually leverage your HIVE with you. So if you needed to partner with somebody in a project, you wanted to share some information with them, you can do it through HIVE. Now, there's another way of doing this, and we're going to talk about this also in that admin session, which is actually adding a forward account from your company to give a little bit more control. When I invite somebody from outside the firm, I have limited controls over what I can actually give to them. And they technically do have to already have a HIVE account in some form. So it's not quite as flexible as having, say, a forward account from your own company. We'll talk about that again in the admin side, but you can give them much more control if you wanted to, and or time bomb their ability to use HIVE. So let's take a look over here, by the way, at that request that Joe Demo had sent in. If I go to requests and I go to manage requests, one of the requests was, where was it at? What did I call it? I forgot what I said it was. Something about, oh, there we go, more documentation on shared coordinates. I could probably have filtered this down a bit using the little filter options here to get rid of completed things and rejected things, stuff like that. But in this case, new documentation on shared coordinates was submitted by that person. Did I fail to actually attach stuff? I thought that I had attached some things. Well, I maybe failed to do that. I made it, but I maybe didn't actually attach it. Well, had I attached it, let's actually back up and find one that does have attachment. Let's go here. New needed woo. Okay, apparently this person can't spell. New tags for door content. They actually attached a few things here for some of that content in this case, some PDFs, maybe that document, some of the tag definitions and graphics that were needed. Oh, hey, there it is. Apparently there's a couple of new documentation and shared coordinates inside of here. Here's the one that I made moments ago. There's the one, and there's the actual files that I had attached, right? So you can then, as a company admin, take that content, download it, read it, and add it back into HIVE as required. Now, we're going to do a lot of that adding of content in a future session, but for now, I just kind of wanted to walk you through what was possible and kind of give you an introduction to HIVE itself. We did a lot of introduction on how to search and navigate, but we didn't do a lot on the admin side, again, because admin is sort of its own major control there. All right. Let's jump back over to the Joe Demo account and look at one more method of searching. So you can actually see how the discover portion works, and also how an end user, depending on their rights to different libraries, can actually interact with the content with you. So I'm going to log out. I'm going to log back in as my demo account here. Give this thing a second to log back in. And we're going to take a look at some content. So I'm going to go to, let's just use one of these saved searches that already exist out here. I'll use the MEP electrical search. All of this content here is in a library where I have rights to actually provide some feedback. If I right click on anything inside of here, notice how as an end user, I have managed tags. So I can actually add to the tagging, add to the intelligent searching capabilities of these different bits of content here. I can also comment back to the BIM management team, and I can also give this content a rating. So in my Revit library, personal preference, I like to give people the ability to update the tags and help improve upon the health of the actual libraries. Comment back to me, tell me what's wrong with things in this library, give me ratings so I can filter by that and help improve the content. I like that. But there's another portion of my library where perhaps I don't like that as much. If I go over here to standards and procedures, these are things that as a company we've decided upon. Oh, I have to uncheck Revit content over here in this case. This is primarily Word documents and Excel files and things like that, PDFs, that kind of information. While I'm in this library here as an end user, or I should say as a BIM manager, I really don't care what people's opinions are on the standard. I don't want to get into a discussion about that here inside of HIVE and have a bunch of comments about that. So I've disabled the ability for users to rate the content, for them to tag it, and for them to basically give me comments on it. If you want to have a discussion about standards, that's fine, but we're going to do it outside of HIVE so it doesn't cause a whole bunch of dissension in the company. Because frankly, this isn't the right avenue to have that kind of standards discussion. If you don't like how I handle my line weights, that's too bad. You know, that's our standards for the company. Whereas if you don't like how a family works because it breaks your model, that I kind of care about, right? So you can actually control as a company admin who can interact with what and how, and it's all automatic based on user rights and library association. So really libraries are another avenue for how you can control different buckets of rights, okay? So we've been using this search page over here for quite a while. Let's use a different way of searching real quick so you can see one final way, and then we're going to close out this session and talk about, in another session, we'll talk about administration or much more advanced user searching. I'm going to go over here to the Discover portion. On Discover, you have the ability to filter to specific libraries. In my case, I'll use just one. I'm going to use the Revit Content Out of the Box library. When you do this, when you go to Discover, it's a little different than search. Search is more like, again, Google, keyword searching. Discover is like a crazy advanced filter environment here, where I can go through and I can pick stuff that I'm looking for. Now notice how I actually get a whole bunch of properties about these files. You go, what are those properties? Well, these are the explicit parameters that exist in these families that are in this library. Hive went through and gave me a list of every single parameter, and if I was to expand one of these out, like 12 circuit height, it's going to give me all of the individual values that were stored in there as well, in this case in decimal feet, right? So it gives me all of this information across my entire library. Now, I don't necessarily want all this stuff. I only want to look for some things that might be, let's use doors again as an example. It's a simple example. So I'm going to go here to my category. In fact, if I typed up here, doors, it would actually filter this list down and find me stuff that's in a folder name that might somehow reference doors, or a Revit category that somehow references doors. Ultimately, I can grab doors in this case, and it'll actually add that to my filtered list and start finding content over here on the left-hand side for things that match that Revit category of doors. Also, notice at the same time, over here to the right, it's actually changed my attributes list. It no longer has a bunch of that garbage that might have been related to, say, electrical panel boards or furniture components. Now it's giving me just parameters that are in my library, specifically in my out-of-the-box content library, that directly relate to all of my door content. So as I filter this list down, this parameter list will automatically filter itself down as well. Let's use another example. Let's say I'm looking for any door that has a width of 3 feet. So I'm going to scroll down to the width down here, and I'm going to go grab anything that matches 3. Okay, I could grab 3, or I could also potentially grab 36, because 36 might also matter here. Actually, let's get rid of 3, because 3 is for the curtain wall garbage that exists out of the box. Let's go grab 36 inch. That might be better. So we'll grab 36 inch. That should find me a few doors in this list. Okay, so here's a bunch of doors. Now this list again for the properties, the attributes for these Revit families, they again filtered themselves down and gave me now additional parameters that were relevant to help me further filter this content. Things like give me only things that have 4 3/4 inch styles on them. And it might filter my lists more, but it's only going to give me certain doors. So now you can consume this. So users can use either, can leverage either the basic searching, again like Google searching, or a fairly advanced discovery of content by filtering deep down into the actual file properties, looking at anything that helps isolate this content. And of course, just like with the other search up here, you can drag and drop this content directly into your model. All right. Let's see. Anything else major about Hive that we want to talk about today? Nope. I think that's about it. In fact, let's minimize all this stuff. Let's go back to the desktop. In fact, let's jump back into PowerPoint over here, and we're going to take a look at some final thoughts. All right. Hive allows you to search all content that's added into the Hive environment, independent of its folder. It allows you to have this content hosted in the cloud. So right down here, you can have it cloud hosted exclusively, or if you wanted to, or you can have it just the stuff that's on your local network. You can turn off cloud hosting if you really want to. That's up to you. When you're searching the content that's either in the cloud or on your network, either way, once it's added into Hive, Hive searches all of the metadata, including the custom tags that you've yourself added. So it gives you the ability to really dig deep into content, gives your users the ability to dig deep into content, and makes it super simple for people to find what they're looking for without doing crazy Windows searches and looking just at file names. you can, again, dig deep. Basically, users experience instant file consumption, right? When they're dragging and dropping or double clicking on content, they search for something and instantly it's right there. They can grab it, open it, use it however is right for their current workflow. And HIVE, of course, as we looked at most of today, is primarily used in design applications like Revit. And so this does allow for design software specific consumption of content. Revit is its own animal. It's got its own needs. It's got, you know, Revit content can only be used, of course, within Revit, right? So this can help you with that and help you actually drop Revit content, search Revit content more deeply. All right, let's see here. I really appreciate everybody's time today that you've given us, of course. We want to make sure this is meaningful for you. So as you exit today's presentation, please leave us some feedback. Let us know what you thought. If you thought this was great, fantastic. If you didn't like it, great, let me know. But the goal here is that you have a full comprehensive introduction to HIVE. If you want to share this with anybody else once it's uploaded to the YouTube channel, please feel free to do that. And again, if you've got questions in the future, you can either get a hold of us directly at CTC Software, or you can get a hold of us, well, you can leave comments on the YouTube video as well and give your feedback there if you feel that's meaningful. But again, thank you all for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in our future presentations about administration and deeper dive into usability of HIVE from the user's point of view. Have a great day.